Hello and welcome to the Bravas Luxury Living Podcast. On the Luxury Living Podcast, we explore ideas and themes that help you live in the most beautiful home that can also be smart. If this is the first time you found the Luxury Living Podcast, please press the like button, press the share button, press the tell your granny button, whatever it is to share with your network, your friends, and other people you know this great content so we can build the best community around creating luxury homes in the industry. The podcast is not just me, it's me and my colleague Keith from Dallas. Keith, how are you today?
Fantastic, Nigel. I'm excited about this one.
Good. Well, no, I know a lot of preparation's gone into this one. So this may be the best looking and sounding podcast we've ever done. I probably shouldn't jinx it that way, but I'm going to let you introduce our guests and get us going.
Yeah, absolutely. So joining us today, we have Bryan Yates, the principal designer for Yates Desygn, and then Mike Yates, what are you, managing director for Yates Desygn?
Yes.
So I guess we're having you guys on today because we worked together in Dallas on the Kips Bay Show Home for 2021, which you guys were gracious enough to involve us in. But before we get into that, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about Yates Desygn, who you guys are, where you came from. Just kind of give us an introduction.
Yeah, so thank you for having us on here. We're really excited. We started off in New York. Mike and I met in New York. I worked for a design firm in Manhattan. And when we got married, we were kind of looking at what our next steps were. We loved the city. We loved the place we worked at. But I knew deep down in my heart, I always wanted my own design firm, wanted to just have our own brand, do our own thing. And so really we kind of started doing some research and figuring out what we wanted to do and where we wanted to go. And everything that we looked at, everything that we researched really led to Dallas. And so 5.5 years ago, we moved here, started a firm, and haven't looked back ever since.
Awesome. And Mike, I know your background is you did theatrical lighting design in New York. Is that correct?
Yes, I was a dance production manager and company manager. I was in charge of making sure the dancers, production, musicians got to where they needed to go. So flights, hotels, cars, and all the equipment arrived for each of the pieces that we were presenting. And then was also put in charge of recreating the design that the designers had for the pieces wherever we went, whether it was Lincoln Center or any other city in the world.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure all of that logistics experience helped you out with this Kips Bay Show Home, and I'd love to just kind of jump right into that because, like I said, I really am excited. I know how much effort and work went into this on our part, which was a very, very small piece of what you guys did. But if you could just give us a quick background on what the Kips Bay Show Home is and kind of how you got involved in it.
Yeah, so I'll kind of talk on that a little bit. You know, Kips Bay has been around for about 47 years. It started off as a decorator's show house to fundraise for the Boys and Girls Club in the Bronx. All of that money goes to the Boys and Girls Club in the Bronx to just help with after-school programming and just development for the youth. And, you know, I found out about Kips Bay Show House probably 2000, it was 15 or 16, I can't remember, when I attended my first New York show house. And I knew ever since then, like, that was something that was kind of on my bucket list. I really wanted to participate in that. You know, Mike and I are really big into giving back, but it also is a way to celebrate who you are as a designer, right? And since the organization has been around for so long, you know, it has really become a recognizable organization through our industry and something that helps to elevate a company. And so, you know, being that we saw that early on and kind of explored that and got to participate through experiencing that, I just knew that one day I wanted to do that when we had our own company.
Really cool. And Mike, obviously, most of the people watching this show or listening to this podcast have never attended a show home of any sort. Can you kind of explain real briefly what the Kips Bay Show Home is and kind of how it works?
Yeah. So Kips Bay Show Home is a house that's been donated to the organization and is broken up individual rooms, and different designers across the nation are assigned to those rooms. It is a lottery system. So you kind of are given the space and then you're kind of set free. So you can walk into the space in the foyer, turn the corner, and see a design in the dining area, then go into the kitchen and be completely different. That's kind of the point. Nothing is necessarily supposed to go together. It's each individual designer's chance to kind of show what they can do and kind of be innovative at the same time.
And also, I'll touch on, we had to submit a portfolio. We had to submit, who we are as a company. There's a lot of information that we had to involve ourselves in. It is like we're trying to get into a graduate school program, like it is that prestigious and it is that big of a deal. And, it's a huge honor to even be selected to participate in it. And so we did have to kind of work together, and we worked with our PR company to help put together our best quality work that showed, who we are as a company. So it wasn't that we just showed everything. It really had to be very cohesive. It had to tell a story of who, our company is, who I am as an individual, who Mike is as an individual. And then that goes to a committee that they sit down and discuss, who they're selecting. And, they have now 3 different show houses, right? They still have the one in Manhattan. Obviously, it hasn't happened in a while because of the pandemic. But in 2017, they opened up the Palm Beach Show House. And then in 2000, opened up the Dallas Show House, all in the same organization.
Now, I'm going to see if I'll probably make a mess of this and we'll fix it later. But I'm going to try and add some pictures and we talk about it. But I thought it'd be interesting. What do you get when you start? Is this a new build? Is this this is an existing home, right?
Yeah. So in Manhattan, they used to have a house that someone donated. It was a brownstone, and they would just redo that every year. Well, that's kind of gone away now since Palm Beach and then Dallas. They actually have a house that is donated by an investor that does go back on the market after the show house is done. And so Kips Bay, utilizes that space and brings in, very talented design firms to, take and have each room be a different story and show who that company is.
So it's interesting that you get an existing home. I wondered what it looked like when you walked in. Describe what you saw when you walked into the space you were going to have to work on.
So the space was really traditional. It was a Georgian style house. It was kind of a blank canvas. So one thing that they did this year because of the pandemic and lead times is they kind of took everything out. So it was pretty bare minimum. What you see here is really the existing home as someone was living in it when it was on the market originally. For us, the organization came out and demoed all of the cabinets, removed all of the lighting. So we literally had a blank shell. The only thing that was in that room was the drywall on the ceiling, on the walls, the trim, and the flooring. Everything else had been eliminated by that point.
And I guess y'all just took it from there and continued to really, really dig into it. I'm curious. How did you even come up with the idea? And I'm sure Nigel will be able to show the picture on here in a minute, but how did you come up with the idea for this space? Because that is clearly a huge departure from where you started.
So I guess I'll start off by saying we have zero time to really think about what we wanted to do. We had, was it 10, 12 weeks?
10 weeks.
10 weeks from start to finish. When we got the room assignment, seeing what it was going to look like, we essentially, the day we saw the room is the day we could start construction. So we really had to run really fast, which was kind of exciting, right? You can't think about it. You can't overthink about it. And so as we walked down those steps, we have no natural light. We really thought, okay, what are we going to do? And the thing that popped in my head just automatically was, I think we can create a really cool speakeasy. We can make it dark, moody, play off the idea that there's no natural light here, and really just develop something that embraced it. And so that's kind of exactly what we did.
So in the picture that Nigel had there on the screen, you kind of see the entryway. So you come down the stairs, and really, I guess you guys had the staircase as well. So the moment you turn and start going down the stairs, you've essentially entered your space.
Yeah, and I can't remember. I think it was like 900 square feet. So it's not small by any means.
Yeah.
And even having a basement here in Dallas is kind of crazy. And so we had the basement. It had 9-foot ceilings. I think there was a lot of things that we could do to really play off. But one thing that we knew that needed to be done, and that was really, really important to us, was lighting. You know, we wanted to create that environment of having, if we were going to have a speakeasy concept, right, we needed to really play off of that. We needed to capture all 5 senses and to develop something that was going to really create a mood. We wanted to transform someone from the top of the stairs, where it was really bright and pastels and beautiful, but create something that was a juxtaposition to, you know, that lower level and that kind of speakeasy environment.
Sure. And so again, so happy that you called us to be a part of this. But I do remember when you called and you said, hey, you know, you're one of the first people we thought of. Thank you so much for that. But one of the first things you talked about wasn't, you know, the AV side of it. It was the lighting. It was the importance of lighting that space to you. And you had mentioned doing small 2-inch aperture lights. And as you talked, my first thought was, well, this really sounds like a job for Ketra because of the amount of control we have over the lighting in that space. And you guys, probably partly due to Mike's experience and Bryan, your vision, really took that and ran with it. Tell me what you were able to do with the lighting to kind of help tell that story.
I can kind of talk about that. So with the Ketra product, each light in the space is able to shift color temperature from that bright white to that really dark fire amber that we can do. And then you can see here, each kind of light has its own moment, and we're able to take Bryan's design and really give the people an experience that can kind of highlight the things we want them to focus on. The sofa being as white as it was, if you got really close, isn't actually bright white. And so we wanted to be able to control that. But at the same time, the walls are super dark. So we had to kind of warm those up as well. So it was this really fun way that you guys were able to take every single part of it and really make it specifically what we want.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at that picture, you could really see we have some bright white, we have some, you know, shades of pink, we have some warm light to it. What I knew automatically is I wanted the ceiling to be so clean. I think we get into this regiment of having the grid on the ceiling, which creates such a ceiling acne, as I always like to say. And it's just rows and rows of light, when I don't think that that's really necessary, right? If you see here, we worked really closely with y'all to have more of the light on the perimeter of the space, sorry, and to really just shine where we wanted it to be. It didn't need to be even. We wanted to create highlights throughout the space. We wanted to really highlight the wall coverings that we did. We wanted to highlight the color that was in there, and then, you know, we had such amazing art by a gallery in New York that we really wanted to pay special attention to that too, right? And almost manipulate some of the pieces through the way that we highlighted them and enhance them through the way that we lit them.
Yeah, that was such a fun detail. I noticed in the pictures we had, you had the artwork really blue, just really bright and just popping off the wall. And we were able to do that with kind of the intensity of the light, the color temperature of the light, the brightness of the light, and just kind of the amount of contrast in that image. It had stood out. And it was so cool to see how that simple black and white imagery worked in a room that essentially there's nothing monotone about that room. One question I do want to ask you, you mentioned the wallpaper. So that's custom wallpaper in a room that you only had 12 weeks. So if I had that basement in my house, which sadly I don't, and I came to you and I said, hey, I want you to do this basement and this is the project I chose, how long would it take you in reality to do that? Like, how big of a project would that be?
I mean, I think in reality, it'd probably be anywhere from 6 to 8 months. I don't know. Like, given lead times right now, given, it's hard to say exactly how long that would take at the moment.
But definitely at least 6 months.
Yeah, definitely more
Don't call us and ask us for that in 8 weeks.
I know, right?
Well, any good stories or anything that I know when we talked at the show home, you said there weren't a whole lot of things that you didn't get to do that you would have liked to do. Any good stories about either things that you weren't able to pull off or things that you had to move heaven and earth to pull off?
I think for us, we were really able to achieve a lot of what we did, but I think it's because of the relationships that we have with different vendors that were really, people bent over backwards for us. Yes. And I think that one, that just shows like our relationships with the people that we work with, but also Kips Bay's name, right? I mean, this gets national PR. And so it was really nice that everyone wanted to show the best of their abilities within our space. And I think that really helped. There was a few little details that I don't think anybody would notice that we didn't get to achieve. And that was just for timing. We were just like, it's not going to work. We can't do it. Even one of them was, we wanted to have the stairwell lighting. Sorry, I messed that up. We wanted to have the lighting in the stairwell go from a bright white to a amber and have that gradient. And that was something that we were trying to achieve with y'all. And it just could not get it because of timing.
Because I will say, you guys can do that, just not in 10 weeks.
And for us,
just not in the last possible minutes.
Yeah.
And it's hard right now. Things are crazy. It's just, it's becoming industry standard, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the golden triangle. You can have it cheap, fast, and well made. Pick two.
Exactly.
I love the look of the place, but there's also, problem with hidden technology is hidden technology. There was also work done to get the sound right in the room as well, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Jason jumped on board with the sound, and there are 6 Mudden speakers throughout the space and the ceiling. We wanted to be able to have that speakeasy feel with that low kind of jazz music playing throughout, and even kind of the little scratchy record feel. But to do that, we needed to have that many speakers throughout the space so we can keep it at a low level where people can actually talk to each other, but still enjoy the music. And kind of Bryan from the very beginning was very adamant about creating an environment for people to experience. We want people to not just walk through our space, but we wanted them to sit down on the furniture. We wanted them to have a cocktail, speak with their friends, and enjoy the space that we've designed.
But I will touch, I think that the most successful AV and lighting is the ones you don't notice, but you feel, right? And I think that that's just so important that people sometimes don't give the attention that needs to be given to a space. Lighting is so important. And I think lighting is kind of the icing on the cake, right? It can make and break a space. Mike always gives a funny story in dance, how you can have a, wonderful piece, but if it's lit horribly, the piece isn't great. But if the piece is not up to par, but the lighting was fantastic, you don't really notice it as much. And
you still remember it.
You still remember it, right? I mean, it has to be a balance, obviously, but that's how crucial lighting is. It can make or break a space.
Now, I also think I saw a frame TV in one of those pictures running, I'm guessing, a product like Black Dove. How important are some of those technologies, as you look at this from a design point of view?
Well, I mean, as every designer hates a television, right? The aesthetic of just a black, shiny box that kind of has a little bit of a reflective of the space. It's just doesn't add any dimension to it, right? And so we knew that we really wanted something that was practical. We really believe that your space should be highly functional and should enhance your quality of life, but it should also be aesthetically pleasing, right? And so for us, we really wanted something that played off of that jazz speakeasy aesthetic we were trying to achieve. And we really wanted the kind of motion art that it was able to give us.
Yeah, that was a really fun part of the project as well. I think, when we first talked, I knew the thing that was most important was going to be the aesthetics of the space, because as Mike and I have talked about in the past, it's almost like a stage production in that, it does go together really fast, and it is about how it looks, and you guys made it function really well, and people did hang out there and spend time and listen to music and have cocktails. It was a really fun place to be. I guess the last kind of technology we did in there that also matched that, interest in aesthetics was those Lutron Elise keypads. So there actually were metal keypads that I thought went so well in that space, because a plastic white switch on that wallpaper would have been, well, Bryan would have allowed it for sure.
I mean, those are stunning. And
They're
we
beautiful.
even had so many people like come in and say, ours are on back order. I don't know how you got those. We might steal them off the wall.
Yeah.
It's that just extra attention to detail, I think, that really just makes a space. And, even adding to it, there was times where we slept there just because we were trying to get done, so not only did we like program it to have happy hours every Friday, I got to experience it twice by pulling an all-nighter, and Mike pulling an all-nighter on other occasions, just to complete the space. And so there was a lot to do and little time to do it, and so it was so much fun, but it was also a chore.
Now, is the space closed? Is it open? Can people come and look? How does that work?
So it opened in September of last year and ran for a month. Each show house does a 30-day window of being able to view it. And like Bryan said earlier, there are 3 different Kips Bay. There's in New York, Palm Beach, and Dallas. So the next one will be in September of 2022. It would be a completely different house with completely different designers.
Yep.
But we'll be open. The one we did, unfortunately, is no longer available. I do think you might be able to.
You can still access it if you go to the Boys and Girls Club, or Kips Bay website. You can still access a virtual tour of the space. But the house is no longer available to see it in person. We've removed everything from our space.
Yeah, that's a pity. It would be great to see. I want to, while we've got you, I want to abuse the privilege a bit and ask a slightly more general question. So most of us have never worked with a designer before, and most of us just have never been lucky enough. We have lots of people who listen to the podcast who are maybe building their first home themselves, and they go to an architect or they go to a builder, and when I talk to them, they go, well, we're not ready for a designer. I wonder how an answer like that, where do you want to be in this process? And how does someone get the best out of someone like you guys?
Well, I will always say from the very beginning, because for us, it's really, we are here to absorb and understand our client. Our design firm really approaches things a little bit differently. We are here to be a tool for our clients. We believe that, we're lifestyle designers, right? We want to understand as much of their routine as a couple, as a family, as an individual, how they entertain, how they function in the morning, because I do think that design can enhance quality of life, for good and for bad, honestly. And so we want to just help to create that environment that is them, right? Our objective is always to have our clients' friends, family walk into their house and say, this is so you, this is exactly your personality and environment. And so for us, we like to be in the beginning.
And I would like to add that it's important for, if you are thinking about a remodel, a new build, or even just a renovation, to build your team early. We like to bring in our contractor or our builders in, even if the design's not ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to be a part of that process because we want them to see the story that we are building throughout and the reasons why we're heading in the design direction that we're choosing. I think it's very important to have, as many team members as possible. We're very big in collaboration, which is why I think the Kips Bay space works so well. You guys are the best at what you do, and that's why the lighting was spectacular. But then we also had Helene Terry do the cabinetry, and she's the best at what she does, and she created that. And really, it was Brian's vision, my logistics, and everybody's touch in that space that just kind of made it perfect and took it to the next level. And when you build the team that really collaborates, that really comes together and adds ideas and doesn't take it personally and actually goes, that's a great idea, we can do this, that's what you're looking for in a team.
But I think to touch on people that haven't ever worked with a designer before, I think we have a bad stereotype that, designers are here just to spin, and it's about luxury. And really, I do think it's about quality. It's about quality of life. And the investment that you put in for a designer is going to pay tenfold. You're not having to question, am I making the right decision, or am I being too trendy at the moment? I feel like what you invest in for a designer, you are getting back as not having to make bad decisions, not having to have the wrong scale on things, not having to have the wrong lighting. I think that it just helps to make your investment go even further and make the investment the right investment, not the wrong.
Yeah, that's our experience working with designers, especially you guys, honestly, is you are helping the client make good decisions every stage along the way and helping them be confident in the decisions they make. And I think that's one of the biggest differences. Do you see well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was also going to touch on, a lot of times when you don't have a designer, you're taking a little bit longer to make decisions, right? Because you're second guessing yourself, or you're waiting on, okay, I'm selecting this, but now there's a lead time. And it's either you're paying for the designer up front or you're paying for not having the designer, throughout the project, because it's going to take longer. It's going to, so it's kind of like pros and cons, right? You're spending up front, but the build goes a lot faster.
It's almost like there's an old English joke about you get stuck in the middle of a field somewhere away from London, and you stop and find a farmer, and you say to the farmer, "How do I get to London?" And he goes, "Well, if you wanted to go there, I wouldn't have started from here." And it's funny that we often have conversations around just the technology implementation, which I'm guessing you have around the design, which is someone says, "Well, I really like this," and you go, "Well, you should have, if you want to get there, you shouldn't have asked me now. I can't hide the shades. I can't hide this. I can't do that because you should have asked me before you put the wall up." I'm guessing that's the similar experience you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we run into that all the time. And I'd say, we all had the same experiences, different stages in the process, because we do a lot of jobs where an interior designer is called in later, essentially to choose the furniture. And they walk in and immediately see all of the missed opportunities that were there, that, like you said, to make the house more livable. Like, to me, that's the most important thing you do as a designer, is help someone visualize how they're going to live in the home and understand what steps they have to take to get there. And I'm assuming you have the same experience.
Yeah, a lot of times people are thinking, I have an architect or I have the builder. Well, the builder's really fantastic and is really knowledgeable, right? But they only know what they've done as far as design work, right? And an architect thinks macro and an interior designer thinks micro, right? So having all of those people work together really helps to create something that is perfect.
Okay, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Okay, so we haven't practiced this, so let's playing with live ammo. I want to know I want you to give some advice to our listeners, to the people building or designing renovating a home. If there was one question they should ask the designer, if they're thinking of bringing a designer in, what's the one or the first question when you meet a designer for the first time you should ask to get yourself sort of centered? Is there a good first question?
How much are your fees? No, no, not at all. Do you have one? What would you like to be asked?
Oh, that's such put on the spot. I think for me, I would want to. I think it's trying to get to know someone before you already know their style, right? You already know their aesthetic. You've done your research on it. I think it's more like understanding them as a person. You know, sometimes it's like, well, what would be your favorite brand that you could never live without? You know, clothing or shoes or whatever. Like, I think understanding someone's personal aesthetic a little bit more than just the research that they found.
My question would be, what is your process and how are you as the designer going to guide me through it?
Oh, that's a better one than mine.
I think that would be a great question for all of us, by the way, because we all like to think of ourselves as creative, but we all have a process. Otherwise, this thing all falls apart pretty quickly.
Exactly. And there are thousands and thousands of talented designers in Dallas alone, let alone the nation.
Yeah.
It's a matter of whose process are you gravitating towards and who do you want to work with? Are they fun? Do you consider them fun? And if you're not the type of person that's fun, you're about numbers, then find the person who's like, here's the budget we're going to stick, and then boom, and bam, 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 or whatever it is. I think it's, what is your process and how are you going to guide me through that? And then make the decision off that. I would also say, don't interview only one.
I was just going to say that.
I know.
You should always, we believe, and we tell every client this, you should interview another one or two other designers because it's all relationship. Like, if you think about it, we're kind of going into a marriage. A lot of our projects were with them for a year or 2 years, or even we have one that we've been with for 3 years. And you want to make sure that you have that compatibility with them. And
yeah,
that I think is the most important.
Well, I think that's a great question. I think so. It's interesting how many of the questions you have are the same questions we want to have, because we often live with the client after the project's done, probably a bit like you do. For us, the marriage is the day they move in. We've got them for the rest of their life as well. Sorry, you're going to say.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing. We feel like we're their designers for life. We interview clients just as much as they interview us. And for us, it's really important to have that, almost a friendship. And in most of our clients, I would say probably 99% of them are friends of ours after the project, where we still talk to them, see them, hang out with them, or they'll call us again for their next project, or saying, hey, I have a piece of furniture that got ruined. I'd like to replace it. And we help guide them. So I think it's really important to do your homework, not only for aesthetics, but also relationship.
Yeah, we always say, if you don't like us and trust us, then you should probably interview someone else, because it's going to be a really rough process if we don't want to be in it together.
Well, listen, it's been a great conversation. I have a feeling we're just sort of touching the exciting stuff, so we may come back and do that. But before we let you go, we always play do a thing with the people who originate podcasts to get a bit more insight into you. And you mentioned brands and stuff that you like. So we play this 3-question game. They're sort of short questions. Question number 1, and it's really about technology. Is there a piece of home technology that either or both of you live with that you think you couldn't live without?
I would say Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi.
Very practical.
I think
practical.
for me, just the color changing. I mean, okay, so right now we don't own our house. We're still renting. And so we've invested in more of the hue lights because we don't want to spend the money on a rental. We're still saving for our perfect house. And so for me, I don't think I could live without those, because we have those to adjust to getting ready for bed, waking up in the morning. I think for me, that's really important.
Yes. Light is really important to get right. The sort of second question is, and maybe Kips Bay is the answer, is there a project you guys are most proud of that you did together?
I think Kips Bay for me is it's kind of like a dream come true, you know, and it still feels a little bit surreal that we were invited to participate in that. You know, it's 100% us and 100% what we wanted to do.
Yeah. Bryan, from the beginning, I like to say it's everything Bryan's wanted to do with clients that hasn't been value engineered. And from the very start of it, I told him, we have this beautiful space, this beautiful opportunity, design away and we'll figure it out.
And it was a huge investment. But I think we're really proud of every project, but that's like the most proud I've ever been.
Well, and it looks fantastic. So the third and final question, is there a piece of technology that hasn't yet been invented? So when you get your perfect home, what's this uninvented piece of technology you would like installed in it? Do you have any ideas?
Wireless power.
Yes. I think that'd be nice. No,
Bryan hates cables of all sorts. So
that's because Bryan is a designer, and like, you know, my partner, cables hanging around are not appreciated in any way, shape, or form.
No, not at all.
At all.
Even in our rentals, it has to go on the wall and come out somewhere else, and we figure it out. I mean, it's our home. It doesn't matter. I'll put this out there. It doesn't matter if you're renting. Make it your home, because your home is your sanctuary. It's the place where you can come back, recharge, breathe, and be yourself.
And exude you.
Yeah. Put up art. Change the lighting fixtures. Who cares? You're going to live in it. Paint even. People don't like painting. Paint. You're going to live into it for a whole year. If it takes you 2 days or a week, the whole year is going to be worth it. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of things like that you could still even do that don't break the budget, you know? And I think even you guys can suggest that, because we've talked to Keith about, hey, we want to do this for our own home, but we don't want to invest in it. So, you know, there's a lot of things that can be done just by asking a question.
Okay, I found the subject for our next podcast, which is the top 10 things I can do to make my home more me without breaking the bank. And that sounds like a great subject. So listen, guys, we're really grateful for the time. Congratulations on the house and the design. It's just fabulous. It's been a great pleasure to partner with you on this, and we look forward to partnering with you on other projects. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Follow us on Instagram.